Get to know your finances on the Money Wake Up Call. Now here's your host, Dwayne Ellis.
Everyone, my name is Dwayne Ellis, and I'm the founder of the Wealth Syndicate, which is a financial planning firm in Silver Spring, Maryland. I'm also the host of the Money Wake Up Call, which is what you're watching right now. And I want to thank you all for clicking the button and listening in for me. I try to make these sessions about 8 to 10 minutes. I could do a Cat Williams on you and give you 3 hours, but I don't think you could take it. I don't think you could take it talking about money, talking about tea and other stuff, maybe so. But finances, not so much. So we're actually working on a series. This is actually part 3, even though, my editor says don't put it into parts, but my mind is a left brain mind. So this is kind of part 3 of my series involving the Black Wealth Gap. We are actually in Black History Month. And at the top of this month, I thought I would just kind of put together a video that could talk really more solution-based on how we as a community can close the gap between us and other communities when it comes to wealth, when it comes to money and finance. So I've actually taken this slow in terms of there's different aspects to the wealth gap. This aspect that we're going to talk about today involves life insurance. So you'll have to go back to the last videos to kind of see the other aspects of closing the gap, the wealth gap. So let's get started with today's talk. First stat I'm going to put out here, in 2021, 56% of Black Americans owned a life insurance policy. So that means if I line up 10 people, 5 of them have a policy. Here's the question. What do the other 5 have? Maybe if we even round it up to 6. So let's say 6 people have some type of life insurance policy. What do the other 4 have? That is big when you're talking about the wealth gap. And I'm going to show some other data that's going to kind of tie it all together. But I just want to start with something really, really basic. And really, I can boil this down into 1 or 2 sentences to say that we've got to take life insurance a lot more seriously than we take it as a community if we want to close the wealth gap. Now, among insured Americans, Black individuals, 66% on an average, more likely to cite covering burial costs and final expenses as their main reason for buying life insurance than the overall population. Let me just tell you, burial costs and funeral costs are not the sole reason for having life insurance. It's not just a death policy. Now, these little 8 to 10 minute talks are not in any way, going to cover every little nuance of what you can use life insurance for. But again, if I line up those 10 people, 6 of them will say, I only have the life insurance because I want to cover burial costs and final expenses. I don't want to GoFundMe. I don't want people asking, I don't want anybody in my family having to ask my friends, can they help me out on the funeral expense? Which at the end of the day, is important, but that cannot be the sole reason for you having insurance. There's other reasoning behind it. And as I was doing the research, it also told me some other things that I want to share with you. More white, 64%, than Black, 37%, survey respondents cite wanting to shield their family from unpaid debts as the purpose for life insurance or the purpose of life insurance. So what this is saying right here is, and this is really a learned lesson for us, I would think as a community as well, your reasoning behind everything you do is important. So the stat I just put up before, our reasoning behind is because we don't want to have a GoFundMe. In another community, the white community, their overall reason is because I don't want anybody to have to pay the debts. I don't want unpaid debts to be put on somebody else in my family, my friends, my loved ones. I want to make sure my debts are covered. Why is that important when we're talking about Black wealth? Because let's just take the biggest debt that most of us have, which is our home. So if you buy a policy to just pay funeral expenses in the DMV area, for what you would call a regular funeral, and I'll range it for you between $10,000 and $25,000, will kind of cover funeral expenses in the Washington, Maryland, and Virginia area. So let's just say you got a policy for that. But if you got a policy to pay off debt, and let's say the biggest debt that persons have, which is their home debt, that may range you $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. Now, in one instance, you're paying the funeral home, and then there's no, that's an expense, for lack of a better word. In another case, folks are buying insurance to really create an asset for the people that are left. Whole different ideology. And me being a financial advisor for 17 years, I've seen the cases where people pass and then the family's not able to keep up the home payments, or, the home payments from the person that passed, and then there's then you end up losing the asset, which again shrinks the gap or or makes the gap broader between our community and other community. What am I trying to say here? What am I saying here? I'm saying that we have to have the right intentions when we're talking about life insurance. It's more than just covering your funeral expenses. It's really creating, it's giving the people that are left an opportunity to increase their assets, is allowing you to keep those big assets inside the family so that wealth can be moved on. True generational wealth can happen. So today, Blacks also see life insurance as a way of passing on generational wealth. New survey from Haven Life shows that 22% of Black people value life insurance as a way to pass through generational wealth. They need to clean that up. Here's what I look at. When I look at a stat, I don't just look at the number, I look at what's left. So what do the other 78% of folks think as a way of passing on generational wealth? I can just tell you this blanketly. The two more efficient ways, the way generational wealth is passed, and I said this in a live workshop, is through inheritance and through life insurance. Those are the two efficient ways in which, for lack of a better word, the rich get richer. So if you don't have your estate planning in place and you don't have life insurance in place, the people that are left, a lot of time your children, your grandchildren, they're going to be starting from zero again. Whereas in other communities, when someone passed, the people that are left are starting from 3, starting from 4. They're starting from a higher level because those assets in a lot of cases now become free and clear. And then they're passed on to the grandchildren. They're passed on to the great grands and the children. And then they're able to start a step up in terms of their level of assets, their level of access, their level of financial freedom. And if we're going to shrink that gap, that wealth gap, we have to kind of change our orientation to how we're thinking. And this is the last step that I'm going to bring up. The median life value of life insurance policies held by Black Americans sits at just $50,000 compared to a median coverage of $150,000 among white Americans. We've got to change that. That's three times as much. And somewhere along the line, and I've heard this over the years, we're going to have to get away from kind of the thought pattern of, I don't want to make anybody rich. I don't want to be gone and then make a family member rich, make a son rich, make a grandson, a great grand. That is not the thought pattern in other communities. So if we're going to close the gap, the Black wealth gap, we've got to think about insurance in a better way. And hopefully in this last couple of minutes, I've given you a couple of extra things to think about when it comes to the Black wealth gap and life insurance. We must have it. We must have the right thought pattern when we have it. And then at the end of the day, we have to get it sooner so it'll be less expensive. And we have to put the right number on it so that not only will your funeral expenses be taken care of and burial expenses, but you also leave unpaid debts, paid up houses, paid up real estate, and other things so that the next generation will have a better leg up. And in turn, when you do that, that generation that benefited from your sacrifice, guess what they're going to do? They're going to do the same. And then that creates the generational wealth that we're looking for. So I will stop right there. Thank you all for your time and attention. Happy Black History Month. We're still in February. And I think I have one more module to go on this Black wealth gap. So thank you very much for your time and attention. Look forward to talking to you soon.